Within the small town of Eastbourne lay an old derelict house, isolated from the rest of the neighborhood. From the very founding of the town itself, the abandoned property has stood within its borders, becoming the inspiration for many rumors and speculation among the Eastbourne residents. The local children whisper many a tale as to what secrets lurk underneath the building's cold and unwelcoming exterior. They are lucky they are not aware of the truth as I am. The memories of who I once was are for the most part indiscernible. I struggle to recount all but the most basic details. The most I can gather about myself from before the day that the path of my life was irrevocably altered is that I too was an inhabitant of the humble town of Eastbourne, a mere child at that. I believe I was on a leisurely stroll around the street corner, lost in my own thoughts, when my concentration was disrupted by the bleating of a lamb. Such creatures were sparsely found in this area, and so I was compelled to investigate the source of the noise. I spent a good 10 minutes following the out-of-place noise through an endless disorienting spiral of constantly shifting directions, until I began to feel like I was completely lost in the streets of my own town. At this point, I had exhausted far more energy than justified for such a meager end result. What possibly lay at the end of this wild goose chase besides the peculiar sight of a misplaced stray animal? While I had finally come to this realization and I was desperately wanting to continue my walk, for some inexplicable reason I could not shake the compulsion to continue chasing after the sound. It was as if whatever was responsible for the sound had me on a hook and was slowly reeling me in. After more time navigating through a confusing and repeating path, I had finally arrived at the source of the noise, the old abandoned house. From the moment I first laid the soles of my feet on the front lawn, any agency I may have had in determining my future was completely surrendered to whatever force was beckoning me from inside the deteriorating doors. As I grew closer to the source with each step towards the entrance, the scope of what I had fallen victim to became more and more understood to the deepest parts of my intuition. As I felt my very essence constricted and choked and leashed more and more, that God-forsaken lamb bleating louder and louder in my ears, in my mind, I felt the last remnants of my will being stifled further and further until my hand grabbed onto the knob and twisted it, slowly opening the door as it cackled at my misfortune through its cacophonous creaking. The moment I stepped in, the door slammed shut behind me on its own, and mere moments later I so ungracefully collapsed to the ground with barely any shred of my previous spirit intact. I am alone, but at least I have myself. I woke up to a pitch-black darkness surrounding me from every direction. The air was foul and damp, and I had barely enough room to fully spread my arms. It did not take me long to surmise that I was trapped in some small, musty closet. Furthermore, simply even moving my arms required 5 times the effort it normally would, and even at that my control over my body was unstable and persnickety, not at all functioning in the autonomous manner the typical human body is conditioned for. It was as if my mind was lugging along a corpse. With what energy and precision I could muster with what was left of my soul being crushed with the weight of a steel mountain, I banged a half-closed fist on the door and screamed for any assistance. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. I tried and tried, exhausting my degenerated husk of a body past its limits for even the slightest hope of an escape. Yet my pleas were entertained only by bitter silence. I am alone, but at least I have myself. It has been 100 years since then. I am ravenous. My mind is ceaselessly assaulted by visions of a lamb god. My senses even more so. For a century that wicked bleating has pervaded through the recesses of my head, reverberating through my internal senses, driving me into a rabid animal to be puppeted and controlled by the whims of some deity whose power I cannot conceive of, whose motives I cannot discern. I spend most of my days a helpless marionette, a tool whose purpose I lack the sentience to even comprehend, a carcass held by strings and made to dance in this endless maze of agony, a maze that itches and burns. I am alone, but at least I have myself. Whether it be my captor's idea of mercy, or whether the sole aim is to further this sick torture, every 50 years I am granted 1 day of pure lucidity. I am given 1 day to rack my weathered and broken shell of a brain around the impossible truths of my existence, to suffer through this unimaginable pain and degradation on levels greater than mere instinct. Every sliver of starvation and thirst and aging and bruising and bugs chewing my skin and maggots nesting inside my decaying body that plagued me throughout the past 50 years and beyond, I am now forced to experience and acknowledge while fully conscious and sentient. And worst of all is the memories. Oh, the memories of being under the Lamb God's control, and the sickening and depraved acts I was made to commit. The naive, vulnerable children who I've lured with my damaged spirit towards this house which exists in spite of God, damning them to a fate like mine. The only action I am able to take is to write all of this down before I yet again regress to the mummified puppet of the Lamb God, in hopes my words may reach the soul of any being capable of forgiving me. Here I am, bleating. Get me out. Get me out. I exist. I am existing. I am alone. Deep within the small town of Eastbourne lay an old derelict house, isolated from the rest of the neighborhood, from the very